Let's look at two hypothetical Americans. Citizen A earns a healthy salary of $100,000 a year. Citizen B lives on just $30,000 a year. This chart shows their financial profiles side by side. If we only measure their income, Citizen A appears highly successful. But look at what happens when we switch the metric to net worth. Citizen A carries hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical and educational debt, pushing their net worth deep into the negative. Meanwhile, Citizen B is a retiree who owns a paid-off home and $1 million investment portfolio. When politicians debate the economy or headlines celebrate a booming job market, they almost exclusively talk about that first number, the paycheck. We casually say making good money, as if a high salary automatically guarantees financial security. Relying on salary data alone leads to a specific blind spot. As these two examples show, tracking the money coming into a household says very little about the actual level of debt or ownership that defines a person's long-term security. To understand why this disconnect exists, we have to look at how the government defines its terms. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, income is simply the pre-tax money you receive on a regular, predictable basis. That means your weekly hourly wages or your biweekly salary. What that specific definition ignores is money made from investments. Stock market profits, capital gains from selling real estate, and dividends paid out from trust funds do not count as income under this standard metric. Economists refer to a salary as a flow variable. It measures a stream of money moving into a household over a specific window of time, like a month or a year. Because this flow entirely ignores accumulated investments, it only tells us if a person can afford to survive their current expenses. It measures a temporary ability to spend, rather than actual financial power. To find out what people actually own, we have to turn to the Federal Reserve. They track a separate metric entirely, wealth, otherwise known as net worth. The Federal Reserve calculates wealth using a straightforward equation. They add up a household's total assets, things like real estate, stocks, and owned businesses. Then they subtract total liabilities, the mortgages, credit card balances, and student loans. This creates a clear distinction between a flow and a stock. Think of your household finances as a bucket. The faucet pouring water in is your flow, your income. The holes draining the bottom are your living expenses and debt payments. The water actually accumulating inside the bucket is your stock, your wealth. For the ultra-rich, the mechanics of the bucket operate differently. They rely on a massive secondary source, capital gains and appreciating assets, that pours directly into the bucket, rapidly overflowing it, while the original income faucet remains relatively small. A typical worker spends their entire career trying to slightly widen the flow from the income faucet. The true economic elite dedicate their energy entirely to expanding their stock. This chart breaks down Federal Reserve wealth data. Out of 100 blocks of American wealth, 30.5% concentrates into the top 1%. The bottom half, 160 million people, shares a microscopic 2.5% sliver. This happens because the bottom 50% must spend almost all of their income just to survive and service their debts. When every dollar of flow immediately drain out the bottom of the bucket, accumulating stock is mathematically impossible. Meanwhile, the top 1% have enough surplus income to purchase corporate equities and businesses. Those assets then generate their own value, triggering a cycle of compounding exponential growth. This disparity isn't necessarily a reflection of work ethic or salary levels. It is the mathematical outcome of an economy where asset ownership compounds over time, while labor is largely consumed by current expenses. Without accumulated stock, the bottom half of the population is severely vulnerable to sudden economic shocks. Even if their hourly wages temporarily climb, possessing zero financial safety net means a single medical emergency or job loss can lead to immediate destitution. Accumulated wealth secures social prestige, buys political influence, and allows parents to pass their class status directly to their children. The next time a headline boasts about rising incomes or a rapid economic recovery, look closely at the metric they are using. Ask yourself whether they are talking about a worker's temporary ability to pay today's bills or the permanent power to dictate tomorrow's future.